Hey everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. Today we have James Hazelton from FreeWorld, and we're going to talk all about his coming into the industry, what he's learned along the way, and pass some of that vital information right along to you. So stick with us. We have an excellent episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, what's going on, James?
It's going good. So happy to be here. How you doing?
Not doing too bad. Just coming out of the whole snow apocalypse of the Midwest, and I hear you guys have some headed down your way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're saying it's going to be crazy, but it doesn't take much at all to get us Texans staying in the house and not going anywhere. So probably we'll be stuck with my kids a little bit longer. They're supposed to go back to school tomorrow, but we'll see.
There you go, man. Yeah, my kid's school district, I think they're still waiting on the sidewalks and stuff to get cleared off. Looks they were called out again today, and I don't know if they'll make it back this week. We'll see. Right on, man. I want to dive in and learn all about your experience in the industry, but I want to take it all the way back if we can. I'm curious, what is it that brought you to logistics in the very first place?
Yeah, absolutely. I like many people in the industry, didn't have a twinkle in my eye at age 4, thinking one day I'd be in this industry. Um, I actually went to college for audio engineering out of high school. Made some bad decisions that led to me getting into trouble with the law. I actually got a charge for theft. Hindsight 2020 was not a good choice at all. Um, Had to go to a boot camp for 6 months, like a young men's boot camp thing.
Okay.
So basically, prison where you get to work out. Got out of that experience and found out pretty quickly that certificate in audio engineering I had wasn't worth much on the job market, and really struggled for a bit. But I was luckily enough, my brother-in-law was in the trucking industry in the oil field in Oklahoma, and he was nice enough to give me an opportunity. And so took my first job as an equipment operator, got my CDL. Um, yeah, and since then I worked my way up into operations management, got into the recruiting side of the industry. It's been really good to me. I'm really, really happy to be here and really glad that even if it was by accident, that this is where I ended up.
And just kind of follow through with that. So now you're with a company called FreeWorld, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing today and what the company's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a fully philanthropic 501c3 nonprofit that helps folks with criminal history get their CDL, and we help them get jobs.
Right.
So some crazy stuff going on in this country. We've got about 5% of the world's population, but we've got 20% of the world's prison population. About 600,000 people are released from prison every year in this country. And about 67% of those 600,000 go back within 3 years. And what studies have shown and what the data has shown is that a good job is the number one predictor for not going back. And so that's what we're all about. We are helping folks turn their lives around and get into the trucking industry and get a living wage job that can lift them out of that poverty and set them up to never go back to that place because nobody wants to be there.
100%. I love that. I feel like that falls right into our focus of mentorship. But, with that in mind and that second chance aspect here, for those guys trying to get in the industry, how hard is it for them to get solid mentorship that they need to really get that firm footing?
It can be tough, even with someone that's not facing the challenges that I faced and that the folks in our program faced. You can get into this industry, and if you're not lucky enough to end up with a good outfit or a good mentor, you can make some bad mistakes real quick without realizing it. That will make it very hard for you to be employed as a truck driver due to the nature of this recruiting industry within trucking. So it's 100% vital, and that's one thing that we have for our folks that come in through our program is we have this really great community channel
Yeah,
that has all the drivers that have ever come through the program and all the drivers that are in there now. And I'm in a sales capacity. My job is to sort of build relationships with employers
definitely.
so that
Yeah,
we can get our folks in front of them. So cold calling, and that can be kind of an energy draining job. But man, all I have to go do is go to that community channel, and you'll see, Joe in Houston is putting up a picture with his family holding his CDL for the first time, and that just recharges me instantly, and
yeah,
get right back to work. So it's really great to have.
definitely, man. Kind of brings you back to just what it's all about and what you're working so hard to keep in motion there.
Absolutely.
So you've worked across many different operations from recruiting to safety to marketing to business development. How has some of this diverse experience that you've taken on really prepared you for the role that you're in today, you think?
That was kind of that was the pattern of my career early on, was sort of coming at the bottom level. I'm the type of person, I see a problem, I don't ask permission. I just go solve it, right?
Okay.
And so that sort of mindset kind of led me into being promoted into management roles early in my career. But there was some flip flopping, and a lot of drivers in the industry will have that same experience because you'll get one management job. But if you have driver on your resume, a lot of folks, if they see that, they're not really going to see you as a management candidate until you have
Mm,
years in that space.
right.
But the switching that I went through early in my career, which was basically sort of like driver to middle management, back to driver, middle management for my first couple sort of stops along the line, really helped me understand the industry better. So, you know, you hear a lot of drivers say, "Man, I sure wish all these dispatchers would have to sit in a truck for a little while to know what it's like." And
Right.
I literally had to be on both sides. I had to be the guy that was the truck pusher, and I had to be the guy that was in the truck. Um, and that was kind of the pattern throughout my career, just being interested. Problems arose, I went to solve them. Um, and so having that experience with recruiting, with being a driver, with being a justice impacted person myself, and having that lived experience, um, I met these folks this last year at NPTC, and as soon as I heard what they were doing, it was just, I was caught on fire. I
Mm,
never had thought about the possibility of being able to help folks kind of get through the same process that I went through. So yeah, it was just like everything came together, and yeah, super happy to be where I am right now. And I owe it to, my brother-in-law getting me into this industry and becoming a driver years ago. So
that's fantastic, man. And I think coming from your experience, that gives such more of a, I guess, a firm footing into helping these individuals. You know what they're coming from. You've been there, you've seen the struggles, and to have that first person contact or that first person experience really drives it that much further, makes it that much more important in your day to day with making these deals and these relationships with other companies. What are some of the struggles that you see from various different employers to take on second chance opportunities?
yeah, so there's a lot of it. And a lot of it has to do with bias, which is understandable. A lot of it has to do with perceived risk. Um,
Mm,
we see a different headline every day. Warner being sued for 300 million for a drunk guy running into the back of their truck. Just
yeah.
really crazy stuff. And these are real issues that carriers face, and they can't be ignored. And what they worry about is, they hire one of our program participants, and then they get sued because that person had a background that was related to the crime that happens in the CMV, and it's understandable. But what we're trying to do is really dive into that. We're working with lawyers across trucking and across the fair chance space to just understand how many instances are there really, and dive down deep into that data. The other, and what I would say even bigger sort of issue that our folks face is not having experience. Just about every carrier has some form of a second chance hiring program.
Yeah.
But very few of them have the capability to hire drivers fresh out of school. And so our folks really deal with sort of a double boundary, which first is not having that experience, and second is, having the background piece too. So we're just really looking for employers that are willing to consider these folks based on their skills and their character, and not something that they did 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, while also understanding that there are some industries and situations where stringent background requirements are, a thing, like schools and federal locations and things like that. And we're willing to work with companies to make sure we match them up with drivers that meet those requirements.
That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. Kind of looking at, I guess, the longevity of the program, what is the long-term look of that? Like, I know you said that there's the support group or the chat generally that, people will keep in touch, but after they get on with a company, what does that look like with the connection of Free World? How far does that go?
Yeah, actually, I'll rewind and just kind of walk you through our program,
Yeah,
the way a driver experiences it. They come in, and basically, if they're in one of our areas, and we have capacity and they meet the requirements, which it's pretty much have a clean driving record because you don't need a third boundary to deal with out here, and be justice impacted. They're accepted. They're put into an orientation. From there, they get scheduled into our in-house online ELDT training. So they're training to get their permit. After that, they're placed into school, into a trucking school. They're actually paid a stipend of $500 a week while they're in school, so that they're able to really focus on that training and
right.
focus on getting what they do. And then after they graduate, they're put into our career services program. And so for 5 years after they graduate, we continue to provide wraparound services,
Wow.
resume prep, interview prep, Uber rides to and from work. That's something, we have a partnership with Uber where that's something we actually provide during the education part of the program too as well. So free rides to and from work and school, as long as you need it. We're trying to do everything we can to set these folks up for success. So yeah, once they come on into the career services portion, which is where I am, um, we help them in a couple different ways. We Once they're placed, first we help them find a job. So that goes to the interview prep, the resume prep, all that. After that, it's all about, once they get into a job with one of our partners, we turn to more of a retention focus there.
Right.
Um, so we've got this driver into this job. Now we want to provide the support they need to stay in the job. Because, like I was saying earlier, um, when you're a new driver, you don't want a job hop. It'll hurt you.
Yeah.
It'll hurt you, and you won't be hireable. And that's also a benefit for employers too. A lot of us have taken this mindset that it's really not a driver shortage we're dealing with, where it's a driver retention issue.
Yeah.
Um, so we just want to give them all the tools they need. And a lot of times, because of the trust that our success coaches have built with these individuals, we're able to get feedback that they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable sharing with their supervisor. And so we're able to help mediate and pass that feedback along and do everything we can to keep that driver in the seat. So that's the goal.
That's fantastic, man. 5 years is a hell of a scope. And I mean, that's really amazing to know that there's that support to fall back on to really, I mean, give them that firm footing to get into a solid career moving forward.
Absolutely. And they're in that community I told you about forever. And they're
Yeah.
able to, we find that a lot of folks that have been out of the program for 3 years even, still are engaging in the community, giving advice to folks coming in, offering their experience. It's really inspiring.
I think that's what it's all about, right? And that's, kind of the focus here is getting those individuals that have that experience in the industry, tapping into it to help that next generation. And to hear that happening there, I think is the key that's going to make all the difference in the next generation of the industry for sure. Kind of looking back at your time doing this, what is something that you've learned or experienced along the way that's impacted you the most?
I think sort of key to my experience has been adapting an entrepreneurial mindset.
Mm,
And so no matter where I am, I think about it like it's my company, you
yeah.
know? If I'm driving a truck, it's my truck, you know? And just learning to view trucking not as a job, but as a career and begin with the end in mind. I can't say that I did begin with the end in the mind 15 years ago, but the more that I've gone on, I've realized is that if you're gonna work for someone, work to learn, and
Mhm.
make sure even there's nothing wrong with being a driver your whole life, but there's still a development curve that you can go on, and there are different levels of driving, different levels of income that you can unlock by just having a growth path in mind and pursuing that growth path.
100%. Yeah, I fully agree with you there. And it's like every employer is not the same. And if you want to land, even staying as a driver, if you want to land in that great position with that great company, having that background, that experience, treating it in such manner, that's really the things that's going to show you apart from the others and give you that opportunity to land that role and be in a a firm spot moving forward.
Absolutely.
What do you think are some of the biggest challenges in the trucking industry today?
Yeah, so I'm not I'm not a trucking expert at all. Largely my experience has been a mixture of oil field and construction and then being in the recruiting side of the
Yeah,
general larger industry. But I think going back to that driver retention issue, you know, um, there has somehow we have allowed we've commoditized drivers. One driver is the same in another as another. Many employers view it that way, and it's the same way with drivers. You know,
yeah,
going back to that, this is a job. And I can go get any job tomorrow. Well, a lot of folks are learning right now that that's not true. Um, a lot of the folks, especially I feel for, are the ones that came into trucking during the pandemic where we had historic demand. And that was sort of their first experience. And now we've gone into a historic recession, and that's been their very next experience. So that just there's too much capacity, right? There's a lot of people entering the market. We're not valuing the human capital that is the core of this industry, and I think until we really start looking at that and doing that, it's going to stay the same.
yeah.
And so I'm excited though to see some movement along those lines and some really great carriers that are flipping that narrative.
Now, within what we've talked about, through your role with FreeWorld and whatever, do they specifically cater to driving jobs, or do they have any other connections for other positions throughout the logistics industry or beyond?
Yeah, so Free World's mission is a pretty big one,
Okay.
and it's really to end recidivism. Um, so our goal, eventually, is to serve every one of those 600,000 people.
Mm,
Um, and what that vision looks like is us being in many different vocations, not just
yeah.
trucking, not just the CDL piece. The CDL was a really great place to start because when we started in 2020, demand was very high. And it was a great place to get in. Also, trucking school doesn't take that long to get through, so we're able to get folks going with that momentum pretty quickly. But there's some that we're looking at very closely right now. One I'm particularly interested in, which is very relevant to our industry, is diesel techs. You know,
Yeah.
the diesel tech shortage is real, and it's coming at us about a million miles an hour. I think somebody told me the other day the average age of a diesel mechanic in this country is around 55. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, we've got a problem coming our way. These trucks need techs to keep moving, and so that might be one we look at. So absolutely, right now we're just in the trucking space. To give you a little idea on where we're going, we started in 2020. We graduated about 25 people in our pilot that year.
Nice.
Fast forward to 2022, we graduated 150 drivers. 2023, we graduated around 700. This in 2024, we graduated over 1,200, and our plan for this year is about 1,500. By 2030, we're looking to be in all 48 states, and also be graduating around 5,000 drivers a year. So.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a huge impact to the industry. Now, you may have covered this already. Forgive me if you did, but what is your reach at this point? Are you, and you said you're not in all 50 states yet, but where are you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a fully remote organization. We partner with like local trucking schools for the trucking school piece, 160 among others. The markets that we're in right now are California, Stockton and Inland Empire. We are also in Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, Houston, Las Vegas, and New Jersey. So that's where we are now. Right now, we're pursuing an expansion plan, which involves working with American Job Centers to
Okay.
actually get some help from them to fund the school portion of our training, and that's what's really going to be what fuels our expansion over the next couple of years is expanding that program. There's a lot of interest. And we're really excited to grow that reach and grow that impact and get closer to that 600,000.
I love that. Now to shift back to you a little bit, we've talked a lot and kind of how mentorship weaves into this. In your personal experience, what kind of mentorship have you experienced and what has that meant to you?
Absolutely. Um, so I'll go about all the way back to kind of the beginning of my story here.
Yeah.
When I had to go do that boot camp, um, I was a mama's boy, right?
Sure.
Never been in a fight in my life. Imagine going to a place like that with nothing like that. But I was lucky enough to land in a cell block with some older guys that kind of helped teach me how to carry myself and help me get through that process. Fast forward into trucking, my brother-in-law was a really great mentor for me. Really taught me how to drive. And fast forwarding into my career, one of my biggest rules is don't burn any bridges, right? There's something you can learn from everyone. And so I would say every manager I've ever had, I'm in contact with, speaking with them, still learning from them. Some of my favorites right now that I deal with are Johnny Rodriguez. He was at BCB Transport as their director of recruiting for quite a while. He's helped me go through this recruiting journey. And also Shannon Kahn. She was at Transforce and True Blue for a while. Now she's doing her own thing, SMK Consulting. But she's been sort of my mentor for my sales journey in the staffing world. And I would just say, mentor kind of falls into that category of fly with the eagles. Keep
Yeah.
people around you that are doing what you want to do. Um, there's nothing more valuable than learning from the lived experience of others. You don't want to have to learn hard lessons on your own. Listen to the folks that learn them.
Most definitely. It sounds like what our parents always told us and we didn't listen to them, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
For somebody that's interested in a career path like yours in the recruiting space and such, uh, what is some advice to get into those type of roles in the industry?
Yeah, I would absolutely. For drivers, like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with being a career driver. It's a very honorable profession. But a lot of folks they get in it with the intention to get out, and that's okay. Um, so that kind of goes back to what I was saying before, which is begin with the end in mind. You
Mm.
know, i- if we want to talk about the pathway of a driver specifically, moving into to a professional role, um, the number one thing that a driver needs to do is be thinking about it and be talking to their managers about it. Um, I want to work my way up. I want to be in management. Give me a pathway to walk down. Um, the way it looked like for me was, I did a little bit of it. It's not hard for a driver. Well, I'll say it's not hard. It's probably very hard. I probably just got really lucky. Um, but if you advocate for yourself and you talk to mentors about how to have those conversations about advancement,
Yeah.
you'll get into these positions and you'll learn more. And that's what it always has been for me, is learn, 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 learn. As an operations management for a small trucking company, I did some recruiting. I was able to pivot from that into the full-time recruiting position. Um, and from there, I was able to pivot from, entry level driver recruiting into the staffing world, where
Mm.
there's kind of a lot more money rolling around. And from there, I went from a recruiting in the staffing world into a sales role in the staffing world. And so that's what it's all about for me, is just making sure that I'm learning and making sure that I have that next step in mind. Um, and that's what drivers need to be do. It's just be thinking about that from the day they start. Where am I going, and be intentional.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's fantastic insight. As we're kind of getting towards the end here, I also want to flip it back just a little bit more and looking at somebody that is interested in going through a program like what we've talked about with FreeWorld. What should they expect entering a program like that? How should they prepare for it? What should they have in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So folks that have been impacted by the justice system, you know, go to freeworld.org and apply. Absolutely.
Okay.
If you're in one of our areas, you'll be accepted. Um, if you're in an area where we're not yet, go to your local workforce board. If you're on parole, talk with your parole officer. Um, I'll give anybody feel free to look me up on LinkedIn and ask me for advice. I'm happy to talk, give 15 minutes to anybody and help them talk through a career path. But the main thing is to expect difficulty. Right. Know that it's not going to be easy. Becoming a driver is not easy. The job is not easy. And so being mindful of that and making sure you have a full understanding of what you're getting into before you get into it is a very good idea, because while some job is better than no job, ending up in a 80,000 pound vehicle rolling down the road um, isn't for everybody. So
Right.
just being mindful of that.
So maybe it's looped into logistics, maybe not. Maybe it's just in the life. But what is some advice that is stuck with you to this day that you could pass along to others?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a little short list here that I'll run through. Number one, for drivers and anyone in the trucking industry, is just safety first. You
Yeah.
know, um, there's nothing more important than all of us getting home at the end of the day. No load, no home time. No anything. Just be safe. Don't drive angry. Second tip is treat it like it's yours. Kind of like I said earlier. Think about that truck like it's yours. Think about that customer like it's yours. If you do that, you'll succeed as a driver. Third is be intentional about the carriers you go to work for. You know, a lot of the times, drivers will look for the path of least resistance to
Yeah.
employment. But what happens is then you get going to work for a company that has a 40% out of service score on safer. Pretty soon your PSP is about a mile long and nobody will hire you. So be very mindful, especially your first two or three employers, who you're going to work for. And the way to do that, look for online reviews, talk to other drivers that are there. Um, Number four, I put down here is understand how, which kind of a development on that is understand how recruiters evaluate you for employment, especially for drivers. They're looking at your job history, they're looking at your criminal background, they're looking at your MVR, they're looking at your PSP. A lot of drivers don't even know what that is, and that's the reason that they're getting that no every application they put in. Um, Five, I already talked about, which is never burn bridges. I've seen a lot of drivers, especially nowadays, with the mindset of, I'll burn this today and have another job tomorrow. You might, but it's probably not going to be with one of those good quality carriers
Right.
that I was talking about before. And the final one is something I already spoke about too. It's not a job, it's a career. Um,
Love that.
and you need to think about your CDL as a small business. and you look at what you want to accomplish with that small business, and you set goals, and you set rules, and you adhere to them. Because if you don't, you can end up with, like I said, you can end up with a compromised background. You can end up with with some, you got 8 or 9 jobs in your job history. Nobody's going to want to hire you. So just being mindful about that from the beginning is super vital, especially for drivers. And I would say all of this applies to just about any other job in the logistics space as well.
Yeah, I would have fully agree. And one of those that you said, "Don't burn bridges," definitely stuck out with me because I think a lot of people don't really look or let sink in the massiveness of that. Because no matter where you go, you burn bridges, it really quickly becomes a very small community in this industry. It seems very large, but it gets very small very quick. People talk, names carry, and you don't want something sticking around with you that's not worth it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's a big pool, but it's not that big. You're correct
Right.
about that.
Well, James, we've had a fantastic chat with you today. I've learned a ton. While we've covered a lot, is there anything that you think we've missed in our time?
One thing I would say last of all is just another unabashed plug for any trucking companies, any employers that might be watching this, that are interested in just a discussion about doing some second chance hiring. We are fully philanthropic, and that means that we do not charge carriers for our placement services. Across the country right now, I have about 400 CDL holders that are looking for jobs. So please hit me up on LinkedIn. Email me, James at freeworld.org, and love to have a conversation with you about putting some good folks to work.
That's an amazing mic drop point right there. We're facing this driver shortage. You got 400 ready to go. That's pretty awesome. And within that, any other shameless plugs you have, or how can they get in touch with you or find out more about the programs? We can include those links.
Yeah, absolutely. Freeworld.org. Please check it out. And that's for anyone. If you're interested in mentoring some of our folks, if you're interested in being a donor, if you're an employer, if you'd like to refer someone, please check out the website. You can find me on LinkedIn. Not hard to find. Just search for James Hazelton. I'll be the beautiful one at the top of the results. Message me, inbox me on LinkedIn. Like I said, I'll make the time for anyone in this industry to have a talk and see how we can help each other and help other people that need it.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to get those in the links below as well. James, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today, letting us pick your brain and talk industry with you.
Thank you. And I really appreciate what you're doing, Alex. Getting this information to these folks coming in the industry is stupid vital, and it's not in the CDL schools. So thank you so much for putting all this stuff out.
Oh, my pleasure, man. And you're another one of those guys I feel like we could have a long discussion here and learn so much more. So we'd love to get you back on in the future and keep digging in with you.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thanks, Alex.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And for everyone out there watching, thank you. Make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a great day.